What if I told you that somewhere deep in Egypt, ancient carvings appear to show helicopters, planes, even futuristic aircraft? Above the temple of Pharaoh Seti I in Abydos, a set of hieroglyphs stunned archaeologists and sent conspiracy theorists into overdrive because these carvings, made more than 3,000 years ago, looked eerily like modern flying machines. Some claimed they were proof of ancient technology. Others said time travelers or even aliens had visited Egypt. But the truth, much simpler and far stranger in its own way. When a new pharaoh came to power, it was common to carve over the writings of the old one. In this case, Ramses II's craftsmen plastered over Seti I's hieroglyphs and re-engraved them. Over thousands of years, that plaster wore away, revealing fragments of both inscriptions at once. By pure coincidence, those overlapping shapes ended up forming what looks exactly like helicopters and jets, a modern illusion created entirely by erosion and time. No aliens, no ancient pilots, just history and a remarkably coincidental trick of the eye. In the early 1950s, two artists on opposite sides of the world were about to make comic history without ever realizing it. In the United States, illustrator Hank Ketchum introduced Dennis the Menace, a mischievous yet lovable kid who always seemed to find trouble. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, British cartoonist David Law was busy creating his own Dennis the Menace for the Beano magazine, another young troublemaker with a knack for chaos. And here's where it gets almost unbelievable. Both versions of Dennis the Menace debuted on March 12, 1951. Same name, same mischievous personality, and the exact same release date. What makes it even stranger is that there was no possible connection between them. This was decades before the internet, long before ideas could travel instantly across borders. Hank Ketchum and David Law were working completely independently and somehow ended up creating nearly identical characters at the exact same time. It's one of those rare moments in history where coincidence doesn't just imitate art, it creates it. In 2014, a young British couple, Amy Maiden and Nick Wheeler, were flipping through an old family photo album at Nick's grandparents' house. They were just days away from getting married when a single photograph made them freeze. In the picture, a little boy sat near the shoreline, grinning at the camera. Just a few feet behind him, a young girl played in the sand. The boy was Nick. The girl was Amy. But here's the unbelievable part. The photo had been taken 11 years before they ever met. Back then, Amy lived in a small seaside town in Cornwall, while Nick's family was only there on vacation. Neither had any idea that their paths had already crossed, captured forever in a random snapshot from childhood. Years later, they would marry and settle down just a short walk from the very same beach where that photograph was taken. Some people call it fate, others call it coincidence. Either way, one thing's certain. Sometimes the universe leaves hints long before you're ready to see them. They say you should never meet your heroes, but sometimes fate has other plans. In 1987, a girl named Jennifer was born without legs. Her birth parents, overwhelmed, gave her up for adoption, a heartbreaking start to life. But her adoptive family gave her nothing but love and encouragement. Despite her condition, Jennifer fell in love with gymnastics, inspired by her hero, Dominique Moceanu, the teenage prodigy from Team USA who dazzled the world at the 1996 Olympics. Jennifer watched every one of her performances, plastering her bedroom walls with Dominique's posters. Dominique became her symbol of strength, a hero she never thought she'd meet. Years later, at 16, Jennifer finally looked at her adoption papers. That's when she noticed a familiar name, Moceanu. A few searches later, she uncovered something unbelievable. Her childhood idol, the woman who had unknowingly inspired her entire life, was actually her biological sister. Jennifer was stunned. For years, she struggled to find the courage to reach out. Finally, in 2007, she wrote Dominique a letter explaining everything, and instead of disbelief or rejection, Dominique wrote back. When they met for the first time, it was like looking into a mirror. They shared the same laugh, the same determination, and of course the same love for gymnastics. Today, the two stay close. Sisters brought together not by fame or coincidence, but by something far deeper. Sometimes the people who inspire us most were part of our story all along. August 6, 1945, Hiroshima, Japan. A businessman named Tsutomu Yamaguchi was just finishing up a work trip. That morning, as he walked through the city streets, the sky suddenly lit up, brighter than the sun. It was the first atomic bomb. Yamaguchi was less than 2 miles from ground zero. The blast wave hurled him to the ground. His body was burned, his eardrums ruptured, but somehow he survived. 3 days later, bandaged and exhausted, he returned home. Home wasn't Hiroshima, it was Nagasaki. Despite his injuries, Yamaguchi reported for work on the morning of August 9th. His boss didn't believe his story, that a single bomb could destroy an entire city. Yamaguchi tried to explain, and then the world outside his office windows flashed white once more. The second atomic bomb had fallen. He was inside Nagasaki, at the center of history's only other nuclear attack. And again, against every imaginable chance, he survived. His home was destroyed, but his wife and infant son had also escaped, because she had left to buy ointment for his burns, and at the moment of impact, taken shelter inside a tunnel. Being injured in Hiroshima had coincidentally saved his family in Nagasaki. Yamaguchi lived to the age of 93, long enough to see both devastation and peace. So was he the unluckiest man alive, forced to endure 2 atomic bombings, or the luckiest because he and his family survived them both? In the late 1800s, in Irwin, Tennessee, a man was killed inside his own home. The weapon? A Winchester rifle. It discharged while a friend was handling it. The bullet struck his chest. He died instantly. A tragedy. But instead of destroying the rifle, the family kept it. They hung it in the very same house, almost like an heirloom. 20 years passed. His son, now grown, lived in the same home, in the same room where his father had died. And the rifle? It was still there. Then, in the early 1900s, it happened again. The Winchester went off. Another so-called accident. The bullet hit the son in the chest. The same weapon, the same room, the same fatal wound. Exactly 20 years after his father, both deaths ruled accidents. No conspiracy, no foul play, just one rifle. That killed 2 generations of the same family. So was it mechanical failure, or the most chilling coincidence imaginable? Either way, some family traditions should never be passed down. And those were just a few of the strangest coincidences ever recorded. Were they truly random, or is there something deeper at play? Patterns we haven't figured out yet. Either way, they remind us how unpredictable, eerie, and sometimes even poetic reality can be. If you enjoyed this dive into the unexplained, there's plenty more waiting, because you never know. Your next click might lead to the next strange twist.